Hello, I'm Isaac Wade, and this video is Hip Hinges Are For Everyone, a continuation of my Exercises Are For Everyone series. And regardless of where you were born, either on Tatooine, out in the wild, or on the planet of the apes, there's a hip hinge we can do today, regardless of your age or weight, even if we start off with a weight this small. If you've never done a hip hinge before, that's okay, because you've most likely done the movement pattern before, like picking up your dog bowl or going down and pushing your hips back to pick up anything below our knees around our feet level. So this tutorial is going to start from the very basics in a supine bridge and go all the way to a barbell deadlift. Hip hinges are often associated with low back tension or pain when performed poorly, and this tutorial is going to show you how to avoid that. So go ahead and watch all the way from the start to the end for all the progressions to the barbell deadlift. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started with the exercises, I'm here with the boys to talk about low back pain. And I'm calling out the gurus and grifters who offer simple, quick back pain fixes. You spend 1 minute and you fix all of your back pain, but they don't quantify the damage. What is that? Low back pain that is not associated with serious or potentially serious causes is most often described in the literature as non-specific low back pain. If you have structural damage, the course of correction is going to be different than if you have basic low back pain. And we're looking at structural damage right here. There's lots of different causes of back pain that can be structural. So we got injury to spinal nerve roots, narrowing of the spinal canal, fracture or misalignment of vertebrae, injury or arthritis of facet joints, degenerative disease of the spine, stretching or tearing of ligaments and muscles of the spine, and bulging or herniation of intervertebral discs, as well as tumors. So all these major causes, if they're undiagnosed, either with their X-ray or MRI, you can be in a world of pain that none of these quick fixes are ever going to address. Looking at this spinal and cranial nerves chart of the body, if we have structural damage, we may very well have ramifications throughout the rest of our body by nerve impingement, bulging disc, putting pressure, lots of different reasons, facet degeneration. And if we have low back pain issues, you can see here the dermatomes going down. All of these lower manifestations in the legs, from your lumbar 2, 3, 4, 5s, your sacrum 1s, are going to come up to leg problems, even from the tibialis, calf, foot, quad. And if we're unaware of this problem, none of those little quick fixes are going to do anything. There's no such thing as one exercise insta-fixes for low back pain, but there are exercises that are more valuable than others, and consistency will provide results. This video is not going to focus on those solutions. We're going to look at avoiding the back pain to begin with and progress going forward, because I'm going to have to make an entire video just on low back pain fixes, ones that actually work when you put in the work. To finish this up with the boys, I'm going to pull up my x-rays right here from a few years back. I had low back tension, I was burned out at work, spending 10 to 12 hour days at the gym, sleeping 5 to 6 hours, and not properly recovering on the weekends either. Luckily, looking at my x-rays, I did not have structural damage. So getting out of that gym situation where I was burnt out, and then they canceled my PTO during COVID, which really pushed me to quit and leave and start up my own facility. And once I got out of that situation where I was working a lot fewer hours and a lot less stress, and I got my sleep back to 7 to 8 hours, and as well as working on hip mobility and doing some of the progressions in here, I was able to progress back to my deadlifts and my hip hinge pickups without having low back tension. But if you do have structural damage, And I've worked with a lot of people that do, and I've actually helped their structural damage repair and progress and get better over time. So it is possible for all that stuff to heal as long as you're not aggravating and triggering it and making it worse. I'm going to show you the way to progress to deadlifts pain-free. Breathing correctly is very important for the hip hinge, as it is a stable spine exercise, which means we're going to be moving through our hips and our spine is not going to flex or extend as we do the motion. To make sure we're breathing correctly, I'm lying on my back, and we're going to do some supported breathing by placing one hand on our chest, one hand on our stomach, and we want to be able to inhale and expand our stomach and then brace and create intra-abdominal pressure. So that's going to be like, is we don't want to inhale into the chest, which is we want to inhale down here. So I'm going to inhale with my nose and then bear down on my core. And what that is creating is my lungs are expanding and then my core is getting tight and they're pushing against each other and creating that tension from the inside going out and the outside going in, and that will create a stable core or midsection. Then all we have to do from there is move our hips, and we're going to keep the tension out of our low back, and we're going to be hip hinge back pain free. So in order to start this, I'm going to take in a breath, and then I'm going to drive through my feet, pushing through my heels predominantly, squeeze my glutes and lift them up for the basic hip hinge, which is just a bridge on the ground. So let's go ahead and knock a few reps out. So that's 3 reps of a basic bridge. If we have a hard time feeling our glutes or driving from our hips during the hip hinge, we want to take it to the floor and make sure we're able to recruit our glutes. So there's some variations we can do, right? We can come on up, take a leg off, lower down. And we do like single leg negatives like this. Or we can even just do single leg versions as well. Inhale and brace. And if we have a really hard time firing our glutes in a bridge or feeling the recruit or in a hip hinge, we can also grab a band. The band is going to actively pull our knees in, and our glutes are external rotators, so just pushing out against it and keeping our knees from coming together is going to help recruit our glutes, and you're going to feel them work way more efficiently. So let's do some reps. So we feel get our glutes firing well, moving from our hips in a supine position, and then we can go ahead and stand up and work on the basic standing hip hinges. If you have a hard time feeling your glutes in the bridge, or you're actually feeling your quads and your knees, the go-to solution is targeting the antagonist muscle groups. So we're looking at stretching the hip flexors and the quads using the couch stretch. Right now I'm using a ball, and we can also use a couch, a chair, a bench as an easier progression, and then we can go against the wall for a more intense stretch. So right now I'm starting out with a little bolster for my hands, and I'm doing the low position, which is when I'm pushing my weight forward to get that pull down through my hip and my quad. I like to rock back and forth a few times, and hold it for 30 seconds to a minute. And the most often couch stretch on the social media is actually an elevated version, right? So we come on up. We can use a prop like this to help us get in position. Our back glute, we're actually trying to squeeze that and pull that up underneath us. So that's pulling our hips forward as this leg is pushing us back. And then you can push back with your prop too. You're really gonna feel that pull through here. If you want to increase it even more, we can lift up the arm on the same side and slightly bend away to get the most out of that. We can rock back and forth, hold that for 30 to 60 seconds, and take a lot of that tension out. That bridge should be really easy to fire the glutes. We're going to move into the standing hip hinge. So there's a few things we want to learn here to start. One of them is that we sort of lift our toes up and squeeze our glutes as hard as we can. Your feet might rotate out a little bit, and that's probably your best position to drive force through your glutes. Another thing we want to do is we actually want to squeeze our handle, whatever we're holding, and pull our shoulder blades down and back. So that's going to lock in our feet, locking in our hands, and now we have the cord to lock in from there, right? So we're taking that breath, and then we're going to relax our knees, and we're going to push our hips back. And as our hips go back, our upper body is going to come forward. But if we have that breath in and that core tight, we're just going to move through our hips, and we're not going to flex or extend at our spine to go down or to come up. So once I'm down here to come up, we're going to push through those feet, squeeze your glutes, fire through your hamstrings, and we're going to be standing tall. So let's go ahead and turn, do another one. Grip with your feet, good. Squeeze on your hands. Push through, turn around real quick. Get another one. One more. Another good thing to do is remember to keep your chin aligned with your body. So we're coming down, we're looking around and stuff. That's a lot of spinal extension and rotation. We want to avoid that. If we just keep our chin tucked, we're just pulling it in towards our Adam's apple. It's going to line up where we want it as we're learning the movement pattern. If we're good doing hip hinges of a broom handle or a PVC pipe, we can move into our first weighted progression, which is called a goat belly hinge. We're going to take a dumbbell or a kettlebell and actively press it against our belly button, and we're going to feel our intra-abdominal pressure bracing against the weight. So here we go. So we're actively pulling your shoulders back and the weight into your body. I've got blocks. Where are these blocks for? So far, our hip hinges have been similar to Romanian deadlifts, where we've been taking on the load with our upper body, and we've just been moving through our legs without taking anything on or up off the floor. So where should we start based on our ranges of motion? If we're standing and we put our feet together and do a little toe touch, and if you have a hard time getting close to the ground, which is actually not that bad for me today, then we probably want to start from picking up something in this range, right? So a traditional barbell is going to be right here, but we have a hard time getting below our knees. We need to lift that barbell or kettlebell up. And we also need to improve our mobility in our posterior chain. So we're going to work on both those methods. A great way to improve our mobility in our posterior chain, especially in our hamstrings and calves, is the elephant walk or floss, which is when we come on down. And in this position, we're sort of in a hip hinge, right? The knee is bent. And what we're going to do is we're going to straighten out one leg. You're going to feel that pull up through that hamstring. This is also used as a nerve floss, which is gentle gliding of the nerve to improve hip mobility. And I like to do them all on one side. If you can't touch the ground, you get a block, a book, right here. Do the same thing. So 20, 25 times on one side is a great way to improve that hip mobility in the posterior. And once we're there, I actually like doing a static stretch. So blocks, foam rollers work really well. for other stretches for support. And one I really like is right here. So I pull my toes back towards my body, I sink my hips back. You have to put your hands on an all-day bolster on the floor, depending on your mobility. And if I'm actively pushing back this direction, I'm gonna feel that good pull in my hamstring. Can rock in and out of it. Stretches are best done 5 days a week for 1 minute holds for the best mobility and stretching gains. I can link a couple studies that reinforce that information. You can do the stretches before, after, or on their own. They'll only have a minor deficit in overall strength. We're learning to move and lift a kettlebell up off the floor. That increase in range of motion is going to be greater than our small deficit in loss of strength. So we're improving our mobility with those drills. We can go right into a loaded pattern. I've set my handle up. It's just around the same height as my knees, which most people are able to do a pretty good hip hinge there without moving their low back to compensate for their hip mobility. And we're gonna come on in here. The lateral view alignment for the kettlebell pickup is gonna have the handle be sort of in the center of your foot. So we're pushing through our foot and our heel. Our arch is coming up, and we want that handle right in this region. So that's going to place our knees behind the handle about an inch or plus further back. And the handle's coming down almost in the center of my foot. A little give or take, and we can come on down, apply everything else, drive up and bring it down. So it's here, right? We don't want to be bringing the weight forward, bring the weight backwards as we go. And now that we're picking up off the floor, we gotta push our legs through the floor really hard to overcome the weight, right? So we're pushing our feet off the floor, and we want to be pushing through our foot pad, which is right here, here, and here. You're turning on the arch of your foot, and it's like you're pushing down or gripping the floor with your foot to create that good steady base. So what that's going to look like, you're taking that breath, pushing with your feet, locking with your hands, drive up through those legs. Squeeze the handle, lock it in. So this is a kettlebell pickup, fundamental hip hinge. We're going to change the angle a little lower. When performing these exercises, it's okay to perform 8, 10, 12 reps in 2 to 3 sets with a 60 to 90 second break in between for 2 to 3 non-consecutive days a week. Our main progressions are lowering our functional lifting range of motion by bringing this down over time, as well by increasing weight. Side note, using the Romanian deadlift, which is when you hold a weight down in front of us and we slowly reach down to our end range of motion, then fire up, we were able to improve our active mobility by using negatives. So a slow eccentric or negative increases our muscle elastile length when using a 3, 4, 5 count, and that looks just like this. Followed by a fast concentric. So we don't have a block to sit a weight on and learn that progression. We can do some slow negatives even after mobility exercises to lock in that new range of motion. Moving on to the barbell. This is a low rack pull. The height is going to be either like sort of mid thigh, above the knee. And this is going to focus on the hip force generation to get that weight up versus as much as driving through our legs and using our hamstrings. So it's definitely a major hip emphasis here. And to get that loaded, we're going to come on in, get our hands right on the outside of our legs. And we're getting that good grip, setting our shoulders down back, pack our lats, tuck chin, push to the ground, big breath in, lock it in. So this is an explosive force generating exercise. So once we lock everything in, we're really coming up quickly, driving through those hips, and that's going to create that drive that we're going to need going forward. Moving forward, we're almost to the traditional barbell deadlift from the floor. We've got a couple inches to help out, and we're still working on our mobility, our drive from our hip. So in this position, we're going to be positioning the barbell over the center of our foot. We're actively pushing down with our forefoot and our heel. Your arch is going to be engaged, and the center of your foot's going to be about the center of your arch. So that's going to look about an inch away from it from me. And when we come on down, have our hands by our sides, we're going to push our knees slightly forward like this. And the bars are going to be right against our shin. So you're going to see a lot of new deadlifters with possibly bloody shins. You can wear high socks or pants to negate that. And we're going to lock in just like our other exercises and knock out a couple reps. Next progression is the floor. This is it. We're at the floor barbell deadlift, and let's go through everything that we did to get here. We started off with breathing and bracing with our stomach and our core. We moved into standing hip hinges with a broom or PVC pipe. We did a goat belly hip hinge. Then we move into our kettlebell block progressions, where we're looking to increase our functional range of motion over time, as well as increase the resistance. Then we moved into our low rack pull, where we're really driving and focusing on hip force. And then we moved into that last deadlift where we just had a couple inches to go. We're still working on improving our range of motion and generating force at an end range of motion. And that's the last one before we get here. And now that we're here, we got the bar lined up, middle of my foot over my arch. I'm standing about an inch and a half away, so when I come on down, my knees move slightly forward. Bars against my shins, I got socks on. So when we pull this sucker up, and we're not actually scraping it against our legs, it's just gonna come up in front of us and go down right in front of us, but we're not trying to actually peel our tibs or our calves apart. So what that's gonna look like is we got that hands locked in place, shoulders down and back, lats packed, taking that breath, push through those feet. You can either breathe out up top or hold your breath all the way through and then do one breath, inhale, exhale on the base. As long as we're breathing and bracing with our core and creating that intra-abdominal tension, we're good either way. So let's show a couple different reps here. So that's barbell deadlifts. We're doing them pain-free, incorporating them to a strength training program. We're going to do them in 3 to 5 sets, consisting of 1 to 5 reps per set. Probably not going to do that single rep very often, except for testing. And we're probably going to have 2 to 3 minutes break. A very popular 5x5 strength training for beginners is 5 sets, 5 reps, with anywhere for a 2 to 4 minute break in between. You can perform that once a week and make strength progressions. Alternately, if we don't want to do strength training using the barbell deadlift, we can use it for resistance training. And I don't like to push above 10 reps, so like 8 to 10 rep range. The main reason behind that is it's a lot of stress, and we're going to be fatiguing your leg muscles and your hips and your core. And we're doing a spine neutral or stability exercise. We don't want to have a lot of fatigue, because then we're more likely to do something wrong and maybe tweak that low back right when your muscles are getting tired. So that's all the progressions to barbell deadlifting. At this point, you should be able to pick up a barbell from the floor pain-free. And go ahead and stay tuned for my next update. Thank you for watching.